Hello everyone, welcome to We Do Better News. We have a great show planned for you today. First we'll be talking about the bail system in the state of Mississippi. Then we'll be talking about hurricane relief. And then we'll be covering some of the issues and some of the alternative solutions to the immigration situation at the border and the detention facilities there. And we have a special guest today also who will be talking to us about the link between affordable housing and our education system. My name is Rick Rifkin, coming to you from Austin, Texas. And again, this show is brought to you by We Do Better. So let's get started. A nonprofit called the Mississippi Bail Fund Collective was recently formed. And Mississippi's justice system is almost exclusively a cash bail system. So if you end up being arrested and you are facing trial, you are meant to, within the United States, post some kind of guarantee that you will appear for the trial. Because the idea is that you would be released. And so some cases you're not released, and so it doesn't matter if you can post bail or not. But most people do have the opportunity to post bail. And so in Mississippi, it's mostly the form of a cash payment by the defendant to the court. There is not the opportunity for them to go to, say, a bondsman or to, say, post property as security. And so these folks have to come up with a large cash payment, sometimes several $1,000s. And what happens a lot of the time is that people can't make bail, and then their life falls apart because they're in jail. Because they're in jail waiting on trial, they lose their job, they lose their house, they can't pay their payments, their car gets repossessed, and they get into this complete financial mess. They can't get out of jail, and they basically end up in this death spiral until they go to trial. And so this nonprofit is an initiative of the People's Advocacy Institute, and it was formed through a coalition of organizations. And the state public defender's office in Mississippi is also behind this. And so the legal community also sees the issues with having a cash bail system without other options. And they're currently helping people by helping them helping them financially make the payment. And they do this by conducting interviews with people to see if they have that financial need. Now, this is helping people to make sure that they can actually go to trial and stay out of jail until they're on trial. And it's within a larger sort of initiative to really refund bail as a whole in the state of Mississippi and across the United States to make it really, I don't want to say easier for people to defend themselves in court, but to not stack the cards against them, so to speak. TD Bank and Good 360 have partnered for another disaster relief initiative. And TD Bank donated $25,000 to Good 360, their disaster relief effort. And so every dollar that Good 360 receives, they're able to distribute a minimum of $10 of needed goods. And so through that $25,000 donation, Good 360 will be able to distribute about $250,000 of goods. And alongside that donation, TD Bank is making, their employees are also assembling disaster relief kits to send out to places like Louisiana and whatnot. And what's really fantastic about Good 360, again, you see the logo here, is that they've realized that historically, up to 60% of unsolicited goods donated, meaning that there were goods that were just donated because there was a disaster. It wasn't like there was a specific request for those things. They said that 60% of those unsolicited goods during disasters end up in landfills or otherwise go to waste. 60%. 70% of all given happens within the first 2 months post-disaster, often leaving long-term recovery abandoned. So there's this window where people give, and then they stop, or they will give at the wrong times when people do not actually need those goods. And so that's why Good 360 has specialized in disaster relief. And so check them out. We have their link in the show notes. They are experts at really understanding the timing of these things so that people are getting goods on time, and that those donations and those things that are given are actually stretched and used so that people can benefit fully from them. Now, a nonprofit called Freedom for Immigrants has come up with the solution, or really an alternative to the, let's call it private contractors that we currently have running facilities in the border, specifically facilities that are holding migrants. And the problem right now is that 60% of detained immigrants are housed in private prisons, or well, that's part of the scenario. And so, in the state of California, about 5,000 people are incarcerated a day for immigration-related cases. And so 60% of those people go to privately run immigration prisons, namely prisons run by the GEO Group or by Core Civic. And Core Civic and GEO Group together detain approximately 15,000 people in immigration detention per day. And the GEO Group receives more taxpayer dollars for immigration detention than any other ICE contractor. And in 2017, financial year 2017, they received $184 million. And Core Civic received $135 million on detention-related, immigration-related detention. And so this alternative created by Freedom for Migrants it's shown that it costs only $17 a day per person to support individuals that go through their case management service versus the $145 that is spent with companies such as the GEO Group. And these are alternative accompaniment programs, and they're community initiated. And what they do is that they're similar to some of the federal refugee resettlement programs. And so instead of being treated completely like prisoners with the ankle monitors and all that, they're allowed to live with family and whatnot while the case is being handled. And sometimes they're put into group homes, and it's just a generally gentler process, and it also costs less money. And so people tend to be more comfortable, and so there have been delays, like there have been court backlogs and whatnot. And so it's important to, while people are going to be waiting extra time because the courts are backed up and not all these cases can be heard, it's important these people can be housed comfortably, and that the government is spending less money. And so Freedom for Immigrants has provided an alternative to that. And so, it's really interesting because it's also at a time where the state of California has passed 2 laws that have put a moratorium on immigration detention expansion. They're no longer, or they're going to put a hold on creating more facilities. And so there's going to be a real stretch for resources if we continue to have this problem at the border. All right, I want to introduce our next guest. Our next guest is Audrey Rease. She's Executive Director of 3-Star Communities and Star C. And Audrea is a real estate professional. She has experience working for Morgan Stanley's Lease, where she oversaw a multi-billion-dollar real estate portfolio with that company over several different property types. And she also previously was the Director of Alumni Affairs for Leadership Atlanta. And she brings this wealth of knowledge with her to 3-Star and 3C. And what what they are is that Three Star Communities is a 501c3 that operates in the metropolitan Atlanta area, and they have a affordable housing mission, right? And so they invest in affordable housing, and with that, their sister nonprofit Star C operates what they call wraparound services that really empower people to, really empower children specifically, so that they stay in school and that they really can excel, and they have after school programs and they have like arts and crafts programs. And so Audrea is going to talk to us about the impact that Star C has had in the community by merging affordable housing, creating a stable living environment, and what impact that has on schools and the results that they've seen in Atlanta. And now I'm joined by Audrey Rease of Three Star Communities. Audrey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Rick. I'm glad to be speaking with you today.
Great, great. So tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about Three Star and the background behind all of that.
Okay, I'm Audrea Rease. I am the Executive Director of Three Star Communities. I am also the Executive Director of Star C Programs. The difference between these two organizations is that Three Star was set up as a nonprofit for foundations and philanthropists who wanted to invest in affordable housing, make grants and donations where there was no return of money involved. And then Star C Programs was set up to provide wraparound services to affordable housing communities. Those services include free on-site after-school and summer camp, a wellness initiative that connects our residents to a fairly qualified health clinic or other health provider to ensure that they have access to basic health services. And finally, at some properties, we have a gardening initiative. In addition to this, I am also a partner with TriStar Real Estate Investment, which is an investment advisor overseeing retail and office properties here in the metro Atlanta area.
Great. So a whole bunch of things you just said there: affordable housing, wraparound services, investment real estate. So
yes.
We want to talk. I want to get into the impact that Three Star's programs has on the schools that they're next to. So just so the audience understands, Three Star Communities operates and owns real estate in the Atlanta area, and they focus on properties that are in school districts that are failing or suffering. And so Audrey's going to tell us more about the impact that has on the schools. And tell us a little bit how Three Star first got started and the impact y'all started seeing then.
Well, the impetus of this whole idea came via my other partners, Margie Stagmeyer and Duncan Gibbs. In their work in owning affordable housing communities, they realized the connection between affordable housing and education. And that came about when they began to see that in renovating a troubled property or in purchasing a troubled property, they realized that there was a relationship between that property and the school. And if things were not going well at the property, if there was crime, or if rents were going up a lot, or if the community was just not stable, then families did not tend to stay in those communities for a long time. So when the families would move, they would move their children out of those communities. And so in some of these affordable housing communities, there can be a lot of turnover from residents seeking affordable rents. If their rent goes up, or if there's some sort of undesirable aspect to the neighborhood, the residents will move, which means the children move. And that turn in children moving causes transiency in a school. And transiency is a really big factor in a student's academic performance and in the overall performance of a school. Every time a student moves, it is said that they lose 3 months of learning, which is basically an entire third of a school year. So our thesis is, if we can buy affordable housing, renovate it, and keep it at a decent standard of living, make sure that it's safe, keep the rents affordable as opposed to fixing it up and raising the rents as much as we absolutely can. If we can keep those rents affordable and make it a great place to live, families will remain in those communities, which means the children will remain in those schools. And if we can then come in and offer some additional wraparound services such as after school care and academic support with our after school programs, that gives the families additional incentives to stay because they don't have to pay for after school care for their children, and they don't have to pay for tutoring or homework help for their children. Their children can come to our programs and get that level of assistance. So those were the ideas and the connections that were behind these organizations being formed, and just the ideas that form the basis of what we do. Again, if we can reduce turnover in a community, if we can reduce transiency in a community, and we can reduce transiency in a school, and if we can keep the children in their same learning environments, they have a much better chance of doing well academically in their day-to-day classwork and in their end of school year testing.
That's interesting. So for the schools too, it's probably very difficult because you've got a whole set of kids coming in every year, sometimes in the middle of the year, and I imagine it's difficult for the kids too. While moving might take a weekend, there's a whole uprooting that happens, right? From
absolutely,
the parents might have to get a different job, or
right.
You have new friends and things are weird for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
So you have all that going on, as well as the classroom that the student is moving into is a bit disruptive by them coming in as a new student, and they may not be in the same place in terms of schoolwork and academics in the new class as they were in their previous class. So all that transition, just the stress of it, can be very taxing to a child, and it can just make learning and retaining information so difficult. And then for the entire household, moving in and of itself can be very stressful. It can be financially difficult, even though oftentimes people try to move to improve their situation. It can be challenging for the entire situation. So in those situations, the child has stress related from being in a new school, and then stress related from being in a new living environment, and the entire family can be under duress. So our idea is, if we can remove all of that stress by keeping families in the same neighborhood and helping it to be a good neighborhood, a desirable place for them to live, then they will be more stable. The dynamics of the family hopefully can improve, and the children can do better in school.
Now, is transiency a phenomenon that's tracked at the state level in Georgia, or is that something more qualitative that you found?
No, transiency is tracked at all schools in Georgia and all schools across the country from what we've seen. Wherever you live, if you look your school up, it will maintain metrics. It may be called student mobility where you are, but it's the same thing, how the turnover in students over the course of a year, and it will tell you what that percentage is. And you'll find that the higher performing schools have a very, very low student mobility or transiency, which means that when the students get there, they tend to stay there. But for students and schools that are challenged, you will see that those transiency rates can tend to be on the higher side. And we have seen with some challenged schools here in the Atlanta area, transiency can be in the 50, 60% range, even into the 30% range. But if we can bring those down, it can get a lot better. One of my partners, as I mentioned before, Margie Stagmeyer, she had an experience with an apartment community here in Atlanta. And when she bought it, the transiency rate was at 67%. But by the time she had gone through the process of renovating it and bringing it up to a decent and livable standard and implementing our programs there, over the course of a 5-year period, that transiency dropped from 67% down to 41%. And that school had become a Title I school of distinction.
Over what period of time was that?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Over what period of time was that?
It was over a 5-year period there.
I see.
Yes. It's a school in Marietta. Mm-hmm.
I see. So in the properties that 3-Star operates now, what kind of impact have you been seeing?
So the property, 3-Star is invested in some properties that we have in the city of Atlanta, and they've been invested for 1 year. So we haven't gotten to the point where we can track that type of growth or reduction in transiency yet. And the property that we have is still under renovation. as I said before, we look to purchase blighted communities. And one side of this property was in a livable condition. It had a lot of deferred maintenance that needed to be taken care of. The other side had some units that were livable, but the vast majority of them were very blighted, boarded up, not livable at all. And those properties are still under renovation. We are expecting to begin to release some of those properties for rent within the next month. However, during the course of ownership over this past year, we formed a strong partnership with that school, Cleveland Avenue Elementary, and we have a great relationship with the principal there, Dr. Payne. And she has observed and shared with us that for the students that have been participating in our program, they have noticed improvement in them. They've noticed additional reading from those children. They've noticed a change in behavior where they're more engaged in school, more willing to participate in school, not as many behavioral issues. So she appreciates our partnership and our collaboration because it helps to remove some of the issues, some of the non-educational issues that she's had to deal with, and allow her to just focus more on educating the children. So there are about 35 kids who live on our property right now that attend the school, so that's roughly 10%. And as we bring on these units that are newly renovating, we're expecting for more people to move in, so we're expecting to have a lot more students coming to live at our property, and in turn going to that school as we release more units for rent.
Understood. That's great. And so currently, how many properties does 3-Star operate?
So 3-Star is invested in primarily in 2 properties here in Atlanta, and Star C, which provides wraparound services, provides services at 4 apartment communities.
Got it. And so how do people get involved with 3-Star, either financially as a donor or as a volunteer?
So if people want to get involved with 3-Star as a donor, they can make a donation at any time. We've gotten donations from individuals, from foundations, and various organizations here, people who support our mission, because once people hear about it, they really get it and they understand, they really see how much sense it makes. So they can make a donation. They can make a donation online. They can obviously mail in a check to us. If they want to volunteer at one of our programs, they can just contact our office and we can set them up with a program site. They can go out there and read to the children. They can help them with crafts, different activities. They can assist with homework. And we will also, at the property that 3-Star is investing in later on this year, October 24th to be exact, we will be building a Kaboom playground, which will be sponsored by CarMax. So that will bring a great opportunity to those children to have a safe place to play in their own neighborhoods. We will be looking for a lot of volunteers to come out and help us on October 24th. So if anyone is interested, please give us a call at our office or contact us online. You can reach out to me, and we would love to get you plugged in that way.
Do you have a Facebook group that we could direct people to?
We have Facebook set up for the program aspect of it, and it's called Star C Programs, and that's the Facebook page that we have. So people can go to that page and get updates on what we're doing as far as the events that we're having. They can see pictures from our programs, from our summer camp most recently. They can see pictures from when people participate in the after-school program, from our health and wellness events, and different things like that. So it's a good way to follow us and keep track of what's going on.
Great. And I guess the last thing I want to ask you is what takeaways would you have for people wanting to get involved? I mean, so it sounds like there was a limitation to the original kind of for-profit model because you had the investors and you had these obligations. Do you think there's something replicable or scalable about 3-Star's model? Do you see it going into other states or cities?
I do see it going into other states and cities, and I'll give you an additional aspect of perspective on that. So 3-Star was set up as a vehicle for people who want to just donate money. If they want to give us a grant, if they just want to donate funds to support the mission of affordable housing and education, 3-Star was set up for that. for people who would like to invest in this sort of thing, and these sorts of investments is called social impact investing, mission-based investing, different things like that. And that's where people can invest their money into a good cause. It could be our cause of affordable housing and education. It could be the environment or other things that organizations may have set up that are particularly of interest for you. But if people want to invest in affordable housing and education, they can participate in our TriStar Social Impact Fund. So they can invest money into that, get a return that averages about 3.7% over the course of 10 years. And then at the end of 10 years, they'll get their money back. So they will have a smaller return than what they might possibly get if they invested those funds in the stock market. However, because this is a mission-based investment, they will be putting their money towards helping out communities, helping out education, and helping out families, and getting those social types of returns along those lines of knowing that they're doing good in the community and putting their money to use in that. So for people who want to put their money in areas of social good, but they want to get that money back, the TriStar Social Impact Fund is a way that they can do that. And impact investing is not very prevalent in Atlanta just yet. We're one of the forerunners with that, but we do see it in different areas across the country. We see it in California, in New York, and other places where it's popping up. So it's becoming more and more well known. And so we believe that as we continue to execute our mission, that here in this region, more people can become involved in that. So if someone was interested in replicating what we're doing here, they could possibly see if there's a social impact investing organization in their area. Obviously, they can invest in ours. But if there's someone who wants to do something even on a small scale, I would say to see what schools are in need in their area, what schools are struggling in their area. And then from there, see what the apartment communities are around those schools. And it's almost guaranteed that there will be some apartment communities around there. And then from there, reach out to those apartment communities, talk to the landlords, see what's going on, see what can be done to make those communities better, and in turn, what can be done to make that school better. And we feel like in those ways, when you deal with people where they live and where they learn, you can really begin to turn things around.
Dealing with things at the source, right?
Yes, the source. And I think if people could just understand the impact and the interconnectedness of housing and education, and if landlords could understand that when they raise rents, people move. If they don't maintain their properties in a livable condition, people will move. If a community is a high crime area, people will move. So if we can deal with some of those more negative motivations that people have to move, then they might remain in their communities, which will make for a more stable community and a more stable school, which can bring in better results on both of those aspects.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for talking about your programs and for giving us some advice and tips and kind of insights on this.
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing for people who are in the Atlanta area. We do have a monthly breakfast on the last Thursday of each month at the Atlanta Community Food Bank. It's from 8:30 to 9:30. And if anyone wants to come there to hear more about our program, to ask detailed questions and really get very current on what's going on with us at that moment, we invite them to attend. It's free, it's breakfast. A lot of leaders from around the region come there to see what's going on with us. A lot of organizations that are seeking to partner or to make their communities better come to learn about what we're doing so they can see what they can take away or how they can work with us. So I invite everyone in this area to attend.
Fantastic. And we'll have that in the show notes, and we'll share
Awesome.
this with you, and then you can share it with your people as well.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, Audrey. I'm sure we'll hear from you again.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, everyone. That was Audrey Rease from 3-Star Communities. And, our audience question for this week is, how can we address housing affordability? We've seen 3-Star's concept. Do you know of any other concepts? Have you worked in this field before? Do you have any ideas? Drop a comment below, and we'd love to talk about it on the show at another time. So we're in a real vice grip when it comes to healthcare, and there's a very important and interesting lawsuit that I want to bring to your attention. So on July 9th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit will heard an oral argument in Texas versus United States. Okay, so there's a lawsuit, big deal. What was it about? So 20 states in the United States, so the attorney generals and the governors signed them. They are arguing that the Affordable Care Act is no longer valid, that there is an issue with the legislation, and where it comes from is the fact that the Trump administration had amended part of the tax issues with the Affordable Care Act, and what that was the individual mandate policy. The individual mandate prior to the Trump tax bill was the penalty that you would receive if you did not either buy private insurance or sign up with, basically if you did not have insurance, you would receive this tax penalty. And so that got taken away with the Trump tax bill. And so these states have argued that that this needs to be struck, right? And that possibly the entire Affordable Care Act can be struck. Now, I'm not going to comment so much on whether it's actually going to win, right? Like whether that argument's going to win. But what I want to get at is what's actually at stake with the lawsuit, because you're talking about 20 states suing the federal government saying that this law is no longer valid, and you have 21 states counter-suing and counter-arguing to defend the Affordable Care Act. And what's really important to get is the scope that the Affordable Care Act has and just how much is actually at stake when we're talking about this. And so when politicians make a move on a law like this, what's the scope of it? So the states would lose $135 billion in federal funding a year for Medicaid and marketplaces enrollee financial assistance in 2019 alone, if the Affordable Care Act was repealed. It's $135 billion at stake in the lawsuit, theoretically. And nearly 20 million Americans would become uninsured in 2019 were the ACA repealed, and this is according to the Urban Institute. The states with the biggest reductions would include California, with a loss of $22 billion, New York with a loss of $10 billion, Florida with a loss of $9 billion, and Texas with a loss of $6 billion in funding. So we basically have put $135 billion into one honeypot of a law. And now we have politicians bickering about it, going back and forth about it, going back and forth about a technicality. Make it legal, make it illegal. It would have huge ramifications on the system. And it's kind of like, why would we get into this situation in the first place? Why would we concentrate so much power in Washington, so much money at the disposal of the politicians, such that we are even in this situation? Right? The only reason it's controversial, as in discussion of repealing the Affordable Care Act, is because we put all our eggs in that basket. Right? It's not like we don't know how to get insurance cheaply, or we don't know how to treat people for free. I mean, there's tons of free clinics, low-cost clinics, there's cash doctors, there's supplemental insurance. There's actually plenty of alternatives to the Affordable Care Act, but they go underutilized, and they're not used as much, and they're not funded. And not as much, people just don't have as much money to use those services after they pay their their income taxes and whatnot, and those taxes are meant to go to having a sustainable system, and so now it's going to, there's the possibility that it's going to be struck, right? It seems just, it's just nonsensical. It's like, I can't explain it, right? Like, how could we possibly get into this situation? And look, it is a selective enforcement of the law, right, that they're squabbling about. It's all political pawns on a chessboard for these guys, and so the Republicans are pushing for a win and the Democrats are fighting back, and we're just going to stay on that cycle until we can find an alternative solution that has nothing to do with congressmen and senators. So, well, thank you so much for watching. And again, we are supported by you. So go to wedobetter.org/donate to support us and become a founding donor of the show and of We Do Better. And you can also check us out on Facebook. We have a Facebook page at We Do Better US. Also subscribe to our channel, hit like, drop a comment below, and then hit the bell to get a notification next time we have a video. We release videos every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and so expect content from us weekly. We'll also be releasing individual clips for those of you that just want to pick a particular topic to get educated on. And so again, my name is Rick Rifkin. It's been a huge pleasure talking to you. Coming to you live from Austin, Texas. Again, We Do Better News is brought to you by We Do Better. Thank you so much.